The restaurant was quiet in that way only expensive places ever are. Soft jazz floated through the air, glasses clinked gently, and the city lights outside the window blurred into warm reflections on polished wood. Robert hadn't planned to stop by. He'd just finished a late meeting downtown and decided, almost absent-mindedly, to step inside the place where his wife said she'd be spending the evening alone. That's when he saw her. Clara was sitting at the grand piano near the back of the room, her red dress catching the low light. Her posture was calm, focused. Her fingers moved across the keys with a confidence Robert had never seen before. And standing close beside her was another man, not watching from a distance, not applauding politely, but leaning in, guiding her hands, whispering something that made her smile. Robert froze. For years, he had told Clara she had no real talent. That music was just a hobby. That dreams didn't pay bills. And now, in a room full of strangers, she was playing like she belonged there, with him watching from the shadows. What would you do if you were standing where Robert stood? How would you react if the person you underestimated revealed a side you never believed existed? And if you saw your spouse sharing something deeply intimate with another man, what would your first words be? Stay with us until the end, because you'll be asked to answer the same questions Robert was forced to face that night. Robert didn't step into the room right away. He stood just outside the doorway, half hidden by the frame, as if crossing that invisible line would make everything too real. The sound of the piano filled the restaurant, smooth and deliberate, each note landing with purpose. It wasn't the hesitant playing he remembered from years ago, when Clara would practice at home and stop the moment he walked in. This was different. Clara didn't see him. Her attention was locked on the keys, her shoulders relaxed, her face softened by something close to peace. The man beside her adjusted the bench slightly, then nodded as she continued. Their movements were practiced, synchronized. Not intimate in an obvious way, but familiar enough to sting. Robert's mind drifted backward, uninvited. He remembered the first apartment they shared in Chicago. Thin walls, cheap furniture. Clara playing melodies late at night while he studied spreadsheets at the kitchen table. He remembered sighing loudly, closing his laptop harder than necessary, telling her she was wasting time. That talent was a luxury for people who didn't have responsibilities. She had gone quiet after that, slowly, almost politely. Now, watching her command the piano in a room full of strangers, Robert felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. It wasn't just jealousy, it was displacement. Like he was seeing a version of his own life that had continued without him. The song ended. Soft applause rippled through the restaurant. Clara smiled, stood, and thanked a nearby server who leaned in to say something encouraging. The man beside her spoke low, and she laughed. An easy sound Robert realized he hadn't heard in years. Robert finally moved. His shoes made a sound against the floor, sharp enough to cut through the ambient noise. Clara turned. For a fraction of a second, confusion crossed her face. Then surprise, then something else. Not guilt, not fear. A guarded calm settled over her features, like she had been expecting this moment sooner or later. "Robert?" she said simply. The man stepped back instinctively, sensing the shift.
Take a breath.
"I'll give you two a moment," he murmured, already retreating toward the bar. Silence rushed in where the music had been. Robert searched her face, waiting for an explanation that didn't come. Clara folded her hands in front of her, standing straighter than he remembered. She looked steady. "I didn't know you played here," Robert finally said. His voice sounded thinner than he intended. "I didn't think you'd be interested," she replied. The words weren't sharp. That was what hurt the most. Around them, the restaurant returned to its rhythm. Conversations resumed, glasses clinked. Life went on, indifferent to the quiet fracture unfolding between them. Robert realized then that whatever he thought this moment would be, anger, confrontation, certainty, it wasn't that at all. It was the unsettling awareness that he might be too late to understand the woman he married. Clara didn't rush to explain. She stepped away from the piano with a quiet dignity, smoothing the fabric of her dress as if she were simply transitioning between rooms in her own life. Robert followed almost automatically past linen-draped tables and candlelight, to a narrow hallway near the restrooms where the music softened into a distant hum. Up close, he noticed details he'd missed from across the room. A faint smear of rosin on her fingertips, a small callus on the side of her right hand, the kind of physical evidence that only comes from hours of repetition, work done when nobody is watching. You said you were meeting Mia tonight, he said. His attempt at steadiness came out as accusation. Clara's eyes flickered, not away from him, but inward, like she was checking the order of memories before speaking. I did, earlier. Robert's jaw tightened. So you lied about being alone. I didn't lie, she said, and her tone remained careful. I didn't tell you everything. That distinction hit him like a legal argument. It was something Robert would have admired in a boardroom. Precise, controlled, impossible to pin down. Hearing it from his wife made him feel like a stranger in his own marriage. He glanced back toward the bar, where the man from the piano was pretending not to watch. Dark hair, clean cut, the kind of composure that came from being comfortable around money and eyes. Robert felt a surge of heat at the base of his neck. Who is he? Robert asked. Clara hesitated just long enough to make it obvious the answer mattered. His name is Ethan. He's the resident pianist here. She stopped, then corrected herself. He's been helping me. Helping you, Robert repeated, as if the words had sharp edges. Clara didn't rise to his tone. She leaned back against the wall, crossing her arms lightly, not defensive so much as bracing. I started taking lessons again months ago. Robert let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Months?
I wasn't asking
Yes.
for much.
Her gaze stayed steady.
I remember.
I didn't tell you because every time I tried to bring it up, I could already hear your voice in my head. The version of you that says it's pointless, that I'm not good enough, that I should focus on things that matter. The hallway felt smaller. Robert's thoughts raced, searching for a rebuttal, a way to make her words sound exaggerated. But the truth was too clean. He remembered the casual comments, the jokes at dinner, the way he'd corrected her confidence like it was an expense line item. Clara continued softer now. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it because I needed something that was mine. Robert stared at her hands again, the hands he'd held at their wedding, the hands he'd watched fold laundry and chop vegetables and sign holiday cards. He'd never really looked at them as hands that could build something. I don't understand, he said, and for the first time his voice carried less anger and more confusion. Why here? Clara's mouth tightened, not in annoyance, more like she was trying not to show something tender. Because it's anonymous. No one here knows me. No one here expects anything from me. I can play and disappear. A door opened at the end of the hall, and a couple walked past, laughing softly, unaware of the tension they brushed against. When they were gone, Clara reached into her purse and pulled out a small folded flyer. She held it between them like a quiet piece of evidence. Robert took it. The paper was warm from her hand. It was an announcement for an upcoming fundraiser event at the same restaurant. Live music featured prominently. And below that, in neat print, a single line that made Robert's stomach sink. Special guest performance, Clara Bennett. Robert looked up, suddenly disoriented. Bennett? Clara swallowed. I started using my maiden name again. The words landed with a weight that wasn't dramatic. It was practical. Like a decision already made, stamped, filed, and moving forward with or without him. Robert folded the flyer once, then again, as if reducing its size could make the information easier to swallow. Clara Bennett. The name echoed in his mind, detached from him, from their shared life, from the version of marriage he thought they were living. You never told me you were thinking about changing your name, he said. I wasn't thinking, Clara replied. I already did. The certainty in her voice unsettled him more than anger would have. This wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't impulsive. It was the result of quiet decisions made over time, decisions he hadn't noticed because he assumed stillness meant agreement. Robert leaned against the wall, suddenly tired. So what is this? He asked. A performance? A phase? Clara exhaled slowly. It's an audition. For myself. She explained without drama. How she'd started taking lessons again at a small studio across town. How Ethan had noticed her during a private practice session here months ago, when she'd come in during off hours just to play on a real grand piano. How one night had turned into many. How the restaurant manager had overheard her playing and offered her a spot for the fundraiser. Robert listened, nodding when appropriate, though his thoughts lagged behind her words. Every detail painted a picture of a parallel life unfolding alongside his own. One where Clara had space, encouragement, and silence where his doubt used to be. You could have told me, he said weakly. Clara looked at him then, really looked. Would you have listened? The question wasn't an attack. It was honest. And Robert didn't answer because he didn't trust himself to lie convincingly. They stood there longer than necessary. Eventually, the manager poked his head into the hallway, politely checking if everything was all right. Clara smiled and assured him it was. The smile lingered even after the door closed. "I should get back," she said. "They're waiting." Robert glanced toward the piano, now empty, its polished surface reflecting the ceiling lights. The thought of her returning there, reclaiming that space, stirred something close to panic. "I drove you here," he said. "We should leave together." Clara hesitated. Just a second. Enough for him to notice. "I'm staying," she replied. "Ethan offered to walk me home later." There it was. Not betrayal. Not secrecy, just independence stated plainly. Robert straightened, pride flaring reflexively. "So that's it?" "That's not what I said," Clara answered. "I'm not ending anything tonight. I'm just not shrinking myself to make you comfortable anymore." The words were measured, but they cut deeper than shouting ever could. Robert nodded, forcing composure. He didn't trust his voice, so he reached for his coat instead. As he turned to leave, he paused. "You were really good," he said quietly. Clara's expression softened, but only slightly. "I know." The door closed behind him, muting the restaurant sounds. Outside, the night air felt sharper, less forgiving. Robert stood on the sidewalk longer than he meant to, staring at the window where Clara would soon sit again, hands poised over the keys. For the first time, it occurred to him that admiration, when it comes too late, can feel a lot like loss. Robert didn't sleep that night. He lay awake in their bedroom, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling that he'd meant to fix for years. The house felt unfamiliar without Clara's quiet movements, without the soft ritual of her brushing her teeth, setting her phone on the nightstand, turning off the lamp. When she finally came home, long after midnight, he pretended to be asleep. Not out of strategy, out of exhaustion. Morning arrived without resolution. Clara moved through the kitchen with a calm efficiency that unsettled him more than distance ever had. She made coffee. She packed her bag. She hummed under her breath, barely audible, a melody he didn't recognize. There was no tension in her shoulders, no visible aftermath of the night before. If anything, she seemed lighter. Robert watched her from the doorway, realizing how often he'd mistaken quiet endurance for contentment. "I'll be late tonight," Clara said, slipping on her coat. "Rehearsal." He nodded, the word catching in his throat. That evening stretched endlessly. Robert tried to work, but his thoughts kept circling back to the flyer, to her name printed without his. He remembered how proud he'd felt when she'd taken his last name, how he'd framed it as unity instead of erasure. When she returned, she placed a folder on the dining table between them. "I've been offered a short residency," she said. 3 nights a week, just for the season. Robert opened the folder slowly. Contracts, dates, numbers, all reasonable, all real. "You've already decided," he said. "Yes." There was no malice in her voice, just finality. The days that followed reshaped their marriage in subtle ways. Clara's schedule filled with rehearsals and performances. Robert attended one night sitting in the back, anonymous among strangers who applauded her with genuine enthusiasm. He clapped too, harder than anyone, his chest tight with something that was part pride, part grief. After the show, she didn't look for him. Weeks passed. Conversations became logistical, polite, functional. They still shared space, but not momentum. Clara grew more certain, more present in her own body. Robert began to see how much of her he'd never allowed himself to know. One evening, Clara sat across from him at the table, hands folded the way they had been in that hallway, weeks ago. "I've been offered something else," she said. "A chance to tour, small venues. It's not glamorous, but it's mine." Robert waited. His silence was permission now, not control. "I'm going to take it," she continued. "But before I do, I need to know if you want to be part of my life as it is, not as it used to be." The room felt suspended in that moment, like the breath before a final chord. Robert understood then that this wasn't about forgiveness or blame. It was about whether he could stand beside someone who no longer needed his approval to exist. And he wasn't sure if he could. Robert didn't answer Clara that night. Not because he was calculating the consequences, but because for the first time in his life, certainty had abandoned him. He realized how much of his confidence had been built on being needed, being the one with answers, the one with stability, the one whose approval meant safety. And Clara no longer needed that version of him. Days passed quietly. Clara prepared for the tour with calm focus, organizing sheet music, making phone calls, practicing late into the night. Robert watched from a distance, noticing how naturally she inhabited this new chapter. There was no bitterness in her, no resentment, just clarity. One evening, he found her sitting at the piano in their living room, the same upright instrument he had once suggested selling to free up space. She was playing softly, not performing, not rehearsing, just playing. "I got offered a position," Robert said from the doorway. Clara turned, attentive. "Where?" "A firm in Boston," he replied. "Bigger role, more money. They want me to start in 2 months." She nodded, absorbing the information without panic. "That sounds important to you." "It is," he said. Then, after a pause, "But it would mean you'd have to give up the tour, or we'd be apart most of the time." Clara studied his face, searching for something deeper than the words. "Is that what you want?" Robert stepped closer. "No." The truth surprised him as much as it did her. "I don't want to follow you out of fear," he continued. "And I don't want you to follow me out of obligation. I think I need to figure out who I am when I'm not managing someone else's life." Clara's eyes softened, not with relief, but with respect. They didn't argue. They didn't bargain. They sat together quietly, letting the shape of their future settle into something unfamiliar. 2 weeks later, Clara left for her first tour stop. Robert drove her to the station. They hugged longer than expected. No promises, no timelines. Months passed. Robert turned down the Boston job. Instead, he took a sabbatical he'd never allowed himself before. He traveled alone, read, listened, learned how silence could be something other than emptiness. One night, in a small theater in a city he didn't recognize at first, Robert took a seat in the back row. The lights dimmed. Clara walked onto the stage, poised, confident, entirely herself. Their eyes met briefly across the room. She smiled, not because he had finally understood her, but because he had finally let her go enough to find himself too. Robert and Clara didn't end their story the way most people expect. There was no dramatic breakup, no perfect reunion, no clear villain. Instead, there was growth, distance, and a quiet kind of respect that only comes after loss reshapes who you are. Clara found her voice by reclaiming the part of herself she had been told didn't matter. Robert discovered that love built on control can feel like safety, until it isn't. Now it's your turn to reflect. Would you have reacted the same way Robert did? If you were in Clara's place, would you have stayed silent or chosen yourself sooner? Do you think letting go was an act of failure, or the most honest form of love? Before you leave, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your honest thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to vote in the poll.